What's up, internet? My name's Ori. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll never miss a video. You'll never miss a stream. We're actually live over on Twitch right now recording this. So if you want to be here for the next live daily update, make sure you check out the description down below, pinned comment for all of my socials, Twitter, Twitch, Discord. You can keep up with everything you want. But let's kind of jump into it here and talk about what happened on the daily. So first up, nominees. Renee and Hope are nominated. There is a backdoor plan kind of already in place, but we'll kind of get to that in a bit. We do know that Zach won veto, and this daily was kind of, how do I say this? It was kind of like a two different stories, right? The first half was all about following Santina, and we saw a lot of different game talk with her. And then the second half is all about someone getting friend zoned. So we'll get to that when we get there. Jess says, I'm confused as to why Renee and not Santina if it's a backdoor plan. Dan definitely should have used her the way she used him. I'm 100% with you. That's why, my spoiler source, they were close. They were close. They thought it would be Hope and Santina, because it just made sense, right? If you want to make as little amount of waves as possible, if you're Dan, well, why not just put somebody up that just put you up, right? I guess in his mind, Renee is someone who he didn't get to connect with and talk that much game with while they were on the block. So in that way, it still makes less waves because she's not someone who is seen as like a threat to win something. Where Santina has shown she is capable of winning. He wants to kind of build trust with her now, even though she put him up already. But yeah, I agree. I think the better plan would have been Hope and Santina, and then use her like that for the backdoor plan. And even tell her that, right? Like, be honest. Say, hey, like, I'm using you for a pawn here, right? You're not my target. Hope's not even my target. Hope just wanted to go up. So it seemed like that would have been a better plan. But what I'm gathering is Zach was in his ear. Zach was who he took on the Wendy's trip. So it seems like he was able to have a lot of pull to keep Santina off the block, which then also kind of blows my mind here with some of the things that Santina was saying today. So I think there's a lot we're missing. I think there was some kind of big blow up or reveal. People were kind of spilling information throughout the days. And I think we're missing key pieces of why people are feeling certain ways. I just hope there's is another leftover rising this season. Potentially. The most fun thing that could happen right now is if a backdoor is attempted on Rob, but then it doesn't work. Because if that happens, it really could set up a lot of really fun things moving forward. Reese says, but it's Zach's way or no way. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. Like, these are kind of Zach's noms in a way. And I mean, Zach did want Renee out at some point last week. Exactly, right? He was pushing for her as potentially being the main target over sending JM home, which is what they ended up doing. And it's funny because almost everyone kind of agrees now at this point that JM was the wrong person to send home. Like, even the guys kind of think like, yeah, we probably should have kept JM because Dan's the actual threat. So it's kind of wild. So let's start off with the first real game talk, because a lot of it was just kind of small talk in the beginning. But then eventually we get Santina and Kuzi, who end up having a chat. And Kuzi, here's an interesting thing. It seems like Kuzi might have had an idea that the nominees were going to be Hope and Renee. Because she says to Santina, like, hey, just try and get close to the girls more like on a personal level, not even as much with a game level. That way they don't think you're, coming after them. You can get closer to them that way. Kuzi says like she's just trying to pretend like she didn't know anything was going to happen and she's looking for answers, and tells Santina to kind of do the same thing, which to me kind of implies that both Kuzi and Santina knew that Hope and Renee were going to be nominated before they were nominated, but the rest of the house didn't really know that much. I would assume that people who knew would have been Hope, Renee, Zach, Ty, Maybe Jonathan. Jonathan might have known it was coming. And that's probably about it. I don't think anybody else really would have been informed prior to. But it seems like, at the very least, the way Kuzi and Santina were talking, that they knew this was going to happen. After that, Santina starts saying, like, you know, I kind of wish I would have kept JM if, you know, I wasn't getting so many people coming to me telling that, you know, he was talking game, even though he wasn't talking game, and he told me he wasn't talking game. And Kuzi kind of answers, like, yeah, how did that even happen? And she says, look, Zach is just very, very, very good at convincing. And hey, we got a new follower coming in. Sakaro? Is that how you say that? Sakaro? Welcome on in. Thank you for the follow. Right now, we're actually just doing a little recap of the dailies. You haven't missed too much yet. Just talking about the first big game talk of the day with Santina and Kuzi. And don't be shy. Say what's up in chat if you like. We have a creative name chiming in here too. Do you think a power coup could happen this season? Like the outsiders take power like the leftovers? Absolutely. I think that could happen, but the right people need to have the right conversations, and that is a problem. Because if you don't have the right conversations with the right people, you just never know all the information that you need to make that happen. So back to Kuzi and Santina. They were talking about how Zach is really good at convincing people, and he's going to become a target. They were saying that if he stays, he's going to run this house. And so far, it seems like, yeah, that is kind of how it would go. If Zach ends up staying in the house, he's really going to be kind of running it. And what that would do to both Kuzi and Santina is not let them play the game they want to play. Because they both said, like, I don't want to play the house game, right? Just kind of going along with whatever the house wants. I want to play for myself. And this is where they both kind of mentioned, like, yeah, JM was a target, but Dan was a threat. And we should have sent Dan in that eviction, but that's playing that coulda, shoulda, woulda card. Then after that convo with Kuzi, she ends up moving on to the backyard with Jonathan. The first kind of thing we got is Jonathan also saying he felt bad about the JM vote, but he said he kept being told that he was a target from JM. So if JM's saying, like, hey, I want to go after the boys, like, I just had to go with what I was being told. And he even says to Santina, he's like, look, you don't have to ever talk game with me or share any plans, but just at the end of the day, if you just need to talk and vent to somebody, like, I'm here. And she says, yeah, like, I appreciate that. And all of this stuff that's been going on, it's really kind of changing how I'm looking at my game, who I want to play with. She doesn't want to play a sneaky game. She wants to play more of like a straight up game. And she felt like what she did last week was more on that sneaky side, and she didn't really like playing that way. John kind of agrees that he doesn't want to play that way either. He says, like, maybe I'm dumb, but if I was going to nominate somebody, I wanted somebody out, I'm just going to not put them up and just say, hey, listen, we don't agree on some things. I'm going to put you up and you get to fight for veto. Which, yes, Jonathan, that is a stupid way to do it. Unless you have two big targets you can just kind of throw up there. You don't want to tell people that you want them out necessarily. Lie to them just a little bit. Just lie to them a little bit. But then, no, you're good. You're good. You can't be 100% honest all the time. Another thing that kind of happened here, and it sets up for another conversation later with Santina, is Jonathan kind of denies that the guys alliance is happening. He was like, yeah, I was kind of shocked when the whole idea that there's sides already. He's like, I didn't know that what was going on. Like, I don't think there's a guys alliance going on. I didn't want to do the whole guys alliance thing. That just paints a target on my back. But he said there's still a lot of people that think there's a guys alliance going on, and that's a problem for him. Which Santina just kind of agrees to. And they talk about how right now Dan is kind of a big target, but they could potentially use him as an asset going forward as well. Potentially maybe building something strong between them and a group of others. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Another thing that was brought up was Jonathan talking about how he didn't get along with Hope at first, but now he loves him. He doesn't think he's good at the game, but he thinks he's a good kid, and there's stuff that they could work there. So that was kind of interesting to see Santina and Jonathan talking, because I always assumed they had a good working relationship just from everybody they kind of talk to, right? Like Jonathan talks a lot of game with Rob, Ty, and Zach. That was kind of that core four of the boys, which Santina was really in with Ty and Zach. So I just kind of assumed that they would have a good working relationship. But this conversation made it seem like they don't talk much game at all. And this was maybe kind of one of the first big times that they had a conversation. It's not that I don't like him, but I want BBCan to be BBCan. Oh, for a Zach blindside next week. That would be interesting. And there's potential for it. There is potential for it, but I think there might be some other targets that come before him, only because so many people see what he's doing and they want him out, but they're wanting to take away some of his allies before they take the shot at him. Just chiming in as well, saying, I feel like people are playing it a bit scared. Absolutely. They're playing very scared. Although Leftovers was great, they were never truly outsiders from Taylor. They, aside from Taylor, they were people in alliances that started another alliance to go against the bullying that was happening. 100%. They didn't have to form the Leftovers to get farther in the game, but they saw kind of how things were going, so they decided to form their alliance, which would get all of them further in the game and kind of cut out the people who were doing kind of the problematic stuff. I have to put my kids to bed, and I'll try to be back. If not, I'll chat later. Reed, thanks for stopping by. I will definitely see you later. Well, even they formed because of the women that season. The Leftovers. Yeah, it's a different kind of thing that's going on now, but there would potentially be some kind of an outsiders thing that could form up. They just all need to have the conversations first, and that's going to be hard. It'll be interesting to see who gets the courage to get rid of Zach with no votes to get him out. So that's the big thing, right? Is if you're going to take that shot, you want to make sure that shot works, because if he has too many allies still in the game, which at this point it seems like Zach kind of wants to use Dan as a weapon, right? Because he's been so good in competitions. If he can keep him around, that kind of keeps him safe because he's winning things and helping keep him safe even longer. And then this is where we get more interesting stuff, and it also involves Zach is Ty and Santina. So they had the conversation after the convo with John and Santina, where they were just kind of talking about what the house vibe is. Santina was like, it feels rough in here, like there's tension in the air. And she says it's actually gotten really hard to talk to Zach, which is interesting because they seem like they were very close. So it maybe feels like Zach's kind of losing some of his magic on Santina, and she's drifting away from that side, which is important because she feels like a key piece in making all of these moves happen. She has a lot of information. And Ty kind of pushes that away from her. He's like, yeah, like I know Zach is seen as a mastermind, but at the end of the day, I feel like he has our best interest in mind. And there was a lot of tension between Rob and Zach, and that was causing a lot of the tension. And this is where I think Ty slipped up. And it might lead to Santina realizing, oh, there's something more going on here, and I'm just being used. So Ty says to her, like, oh yeah, last week, like I told Zach, like, listen, like there's the whole Rob and Zach thing, and I had some tension with Rob and Zach, and I said to him, listen, you just go and kind of figure out what's happening with JM and try and protect the boys. And he quickly catches himself, because as soon as he says that, he goes, but I think of you as part of the boys. But that doesn't make sense, because what you were just saying was you told Zach to go to Santina to figure out what was happening with JM to protect the boys, which would include Santina. So if I was Santina and I heard him say that, I'd immediately go, oh, okay, the boys do have a thing going on. I'm being used by them as a number, and Ty just fucked up. Ty just messed up real bad and slipped. And that's what I would take from it. I think Santina did catch on to that because one of her immediate follow-up questions was, where do you think John is with all of this? And Ty kind of says, Ty, John, he just goes with whoever's in the room with him. He doesn't really have an opinion of his own. So it was interesting to see because she just had the conversation with Jonathan, now who was denying the boys thing. Then it seems like Ty slipped up and kind of said like, yeah, there is a boys thing, and tried to cover it up. So her immediate follow-up was, okay, let me figure out, is Jonathan with these boys? Which potentially could be, now that he said, oh yeah, don't worry about Jonathan, right? Kind of pushing it off, like acting like he thinks he knows where Jonathan stands. So that could have been a key thing where now Santina already was in that position where she could side with the guys, she could side with the girls. And if she knows this information now, she could take this to Dan, kind of flip this whole thing if she wants to. But maybe she feels comfortable in that position right in the middle. This is where we just don't know 100% where things are going to go. She also asks about how Zach feels about her. And Ty said Zach is more worried about Rob and the stuff that he would be telling Santina to get him not to trust her, or to get her not to trust him. And basically it came down to Ty was saying, the reason that I want to get Rob out is I don't want to play with emotional players, and Rob is emotional. Ty also thinks that the house is already on Rob, and that people that we would think are numbers for him already wouldn't be, like Nene, which is interesting because Nene is also really upset. And that kind of brings us to what will be like the second half of this update, is the friend zone conversation. Before that, let's check in with the chat, see what you guys were saying. Maybe Ty and Jonathan, then a backdoor on Zach. There's potential for all that. I think Jonathan will end up kind of staying out of trouble for now. And I feel like he would be the one that gets pulled over because him and Rob are so close that if Rob ends up staying this week, it would probably include Jonathan in on that boat. I would imagine he would be someone that if they didn't try and pull him over for a number, if they were trying to keep this going, they would be dumb, because I think Jonathan's someone you very easily could flip and say, hey, listen, we've got numbers that we can keep Rob right now. I think Jonathan would like to keep Rob. But the getting it in is probably harder than it looks. Absolutely harder than it looks. Absolutely. Jess also agrees, insanely, because you have lots of bros against you. And that's the thing. If they really look at it, right now, the tighter bros are Ty and Zach. And Jonathan's closer to Rob. So if they can convince Jonathan, like, hey, they're trying to backdoor Rob, they can get Hope and Jonathan to flip on over and turn this whole thing into the house versus Ty, Zach, and Dan even. So it would be really interesting to see how that all kind of plays out. So let's talk about the friend zone conversation. So, Nene and Rob. Nene's had this crush on Rob for a long time. We even kind of saw some of it happening on the episode where they tried to make it seem like Rob and Santina had like a romance that was going on, which really, if it ever was happening for real, was very short-lived. And ooh, what is this? We got a little sexy saxophone coming in from Jen. Thank you for the biddies. I appreciate it. So it's kind of fitting because right now we're in that conversation where, hey, there was some flirting going on with Shania and Rob, but it seemed like, this was one-sided. Shania really was starting to get feelings for Rob, and she kind of talked about it with Claudia in the last daily, where she was like, why doesn't he like me? Oh, I just wish he would like me. I just wish he would like, oh. And it was like that like girl talk where it's like, oh, I just, that kind of a thing. And this, I feel bad for Rob, because it feels like it's getting pushed on him that, oh, you're now someone who's possibly going to be targeted and not trusted because you didn't reciprocate feelings to her. And that's not fair. That's just not fair to him. You can't just force feelings on someone. And wouldn't it be worse if he just played along and played with her feelings and tried to continue to like lead her on in that way? So it was just a very awkward conversation where she was just like, well, when I get feelings for someone, it happens quick. And Rob's like, that doesn't happen for me. I'm sorry. And I didn't come in here looking for a showmance. So it's tough. It's definitely a tough spot for Rob to be in. He's pretty much getting targeted for a couple of reasons. One, Ty's jealous that Claudia wore his sweater. He had distrust with Zach because he wanted to change the nominee or the target from JM to Renee kind of last minute and felt like Zach was pushing everything. And then now he doesn't want to be in a showmance with Nene, so he's possibly losing a potential ally in the game because she had feelings for him and he doesn't in that way. Afterwards, we ended up getting the girls kind of chatting about that as well. And that's really where the daily ended. It wasn't much. It wasn't much, but that's what we got from everyone. Jen says, oh, terrible timing. You know how much I hate flirting. Hey, listen, it was the perfect timing for that saxophone. Not being interested in her isn't his fault and shouldn't hurt his game. Exactly. There's no reason why that should affect his game. And if it was on the flip side, right? Like if he had feelings for her and she didn't reciprocate them, I don't think it ends up being that much of a big deal because he wouldn't be going to the guys being like, oh, she doesn't like me. But she's now going to all the girls being like, oh, he doesn't like me. They're getting sympathy for her and maybe making it feel like she doesn't want him in the house anymore, which could potentially lose him votes. But if they really wanted to play it smart, they should keep him and use him to fight against Dan, Zach, and Ty, who seem like they might be kind of forming up a thing, even though Ty and Zach would also like to target Dan because they don't trust him that much. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. But that pretty much covers the daily. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of what's going on with the potential backdoor of Roberto. Will Zach use the veto and send him out? It seems likely because that's what they would want to happen. But will Rob be able to kind of get a coalition going together? I feel like he could get Jonathan, Kuzi, Claudia, Santina. If Hope comes off, that's 5 that all could potentially vote to keep Rob. Nene now is a question mark. Anika is always a question mark. Dan C, if they could get Daniel on board, I think that's 6 right there. And you get to keep Rob. You send Renee out, but you're keeping someone who's strong that can then go against Dan, that can go against Ty, that can go against Zach, and hopefully give you guys the numbers and the advantage going forward. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out this week. I wish we got more because it seems like there was some kind of blow up for Rob and a lot of things got spilled about his game, including this whole Nene situation. So we'll have to see how that all plays out on the episodes coming up this week. But thank you guys for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit that like button. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video, you never miss a stream. We were live on Twitch recording this, so if you are not following on Twitch, make sure you're doing so. Links are in the description down below, and you can join us for the next live recording of the Digital Daily Recap. My name's been Ori, and I will see you next time.